Dude, my draft went so well. Dude, who'd you get? I got the number one running back from last year. Uh-oh. Dude, what? You haven't heard, have you? Allow me to explain. The year is 2019. Destination? Every field this man stepped foot on. This man's name was Christian McCaffrey, and he was showing the league why he was a force to be reckoned with, and boy, were fantasy managers excited about him. Dynasty owners especially, thinking, man, I got the next 3 or 4 years of fantasy championships locked up as long as this guy is on my team. Well, little did we know at the time, his reign would last just one season. I'm going to explain to you guys why some of these fantasy running backs might not be as consistent as you might believe they are. So, before I say anything, I got my tea. My name is Noah Reed. This is Simply's Fantasy Football, and let's get into it. So, running backs. 3 out of the last 4 years, there has been a number one running back who has absolutely obliterated opponents when they saw him on the other side of a fantasy matchup. Now, 3 out of the last 4 years, the same number one guy who tore up the league, such as Christian McCaffrey, 3 out of the last 4 years, they didn't repeat even a top 10 finish the following year. I know that may shock you. The last guy to actually repeat after being the number one overall running back in the league was Todd Gurley back in 2017 and 2018, where he was number one both years. After that, Todd Gurley in 2019 didn't crack the top 10. Christian McCaffrey, 2019 to 2020, didn't crack the top 10. And Derrick Henry, 2020 to 2021, the same problem. And in fact, the last 4 years, only 35% of running backs that give you a top 10 finish wind up repeating their top 10 finish the year after. So what am I trying to tell you? Running backs might not be the end-all, be-all like we all believe that they are. Stick with me here. So 45% of wide receivers that wound up in the top 10 the year before wound up in the top 10 the next year. This is based on the last 4 years of fantasy output from 2017 all the way up to the end of 2021. So nearly half of the wide receivers that you draft that were regarded as top tier talent prove to be top tier talent the next year. Now, why is this important? Why does it matter that 65% of running backs don't return their top 10 value if you draft them as of what they finished the year prior? Why does it matter that you have a 10% better chance of getting a top 10 return from a wide receiver if they finish in the top 10 next year? Well, I'll tell you why. Many of you guys think and have the notion in your brain that it is important, and the only thing that is important is to get the upper echelon players because they cannot miss talent. Well, like I said earlier, 3 out of the last 4 years, even if you were the number one rated running back, the next year you fell out of the top 10 completely. And it's not like it's just the number one guy. Like I said, 65% of these running backs are falling out of the top 10 the next year. Running back is a hard position to be consistent at, to stay healthy at, to make sure that your team is continually feeding you the ball at, i.e. Saquon Barkley when Eli Manning had left the Giants, i.e. Todd Gurley when he went to the Atlanta Falcons. These players are just not the same when just minor things change, whether that's a small injury, whether that's a coaching change, whether that's a quarterback change, whether they lose one of their key cog offensive line pieces. Running backs are really, really, really hard to get and keep at a high level for years. So, to all you dynasty owners out there, I implore you, just humor me. Look for trades. Take a guy like Jonathan Taylor, a guy that is on the top of the world. Everybody wants him. There's not one person that if you said, I'm willing to offer Jonathan Taylor, what can you give me back, wouldn't give you a boatload in return for a guy that just was an MVP candidate. I mean, if the odds are that guy, just out of the last 4 years, if the odds from the last 4 years speak any volumes, and you can get 2 stud players for 1 super stud player from the year before, I think it might not be as bad of a deal as you might think it is. Now, one thing I do want to say is tight ends in the same time have an even lower percentage chance of making it back into the top 10. They have a 32.5% chance year over year of repeating as a top 10 player. Quarterbacks are a little higher than wide receivers at 47.5%. So when you're thinking about availability of a top 10 talent, when you're thinking about what can get me to the next level and what do I have the most likelihood of taking me there, how do I know what is going to give me more likely than not the output that I'm expecting from them? Quarterbacks and wide receivers year over year tend to have the best success and tend to be able to replicate their success. So don't be afraid if you have Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty league. Don't be afraid if you have Derrick Henry in a dynasty league. Don't be afraid if you have Najee Harris in a league, even if it's a dynasty league, to explore trade options that allow you to double your players, your stud players, maybe for one good player and then a guy that you probably weren't going to have carry you to a championship. Anyway, don't be afraid to explore those options and see what you can get. Because like I said in one of my previous videos, one of the worst 6 things that you can do is stay stagnant in a league, because it will not win you a league every single year, especially in dynasty leagues. So I know some of you might not agree with this. Some of you might think it's still important to make sure you have that top guy, because if he does boom, he wins you a league. But just think about it. Think about what I say. Sleep on it. Write in the comment section down below what you guys think, and let me know if there's anything you're going to change based on this knowledge I just gave you going into next year. My name's Noah Reed. This is Simply Fantasy Football. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.